Electric vehicle charging stations, where we are amending the zoning code to simplify it. And we sent it up to the Ulster County Planning Board, and they made some recommendations, and the law was changed to reflect some of their recommendations, and so we're continuing the public hearing. I could review some of the stuff, but the public hearing is really here from the public, so.
May I come up?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Just identify yourself for the record.
Straighten this out. Relax to me this morning. My name is Andy Bamouth. I'm from ChargePoint Inc., and we're a manufacturer of charging stations. This is not a sales pitch by any means. I'm going to give you a little history of our company, because you may have never heard about us before, and then I'd like to discuss some best practices and what the New York City is doing and the state of New York is doing in the areas of interest to the board.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, yeah, 2 hours.
Wow. 2 hours to get up here?
Yeah.
Where'd you come from?
Long Island.
Where in Long Island?
Huntington.
Baldwin.
Yeah, I want the South Shore though.
Hear it in my voice, right? It's a long drive.
Okay, so I'm Regional Director of ChargePoint. New York State is one of my primary areas of concern. We are the largest producer of charging stations in the United States. We have close to 16,000, and I'll leave a copy of this for the council. We have close to 16,000 public charging stations out there owned by either municipalities or the private sector. We have about 65,000 drivers that have what we call ChargePoint cards. And I'll go into some more detail of that later. We have about 70% market share of the market that's out there for charging stations. We make advanced hardware, and more importantly, the network that our charging stations are on, so people can find our charging stations. Right in their dashboards, they'll have maps and applications on their iPhone so they can find our charging stations. Every 10 seconds, somebody connects to one of our charging stations to charge their vehicle. We've saved, there's been over 3.7 million charging sessions. This changes daily, that's why I have to read it. 2.6 million gallons of gasoline has been saved with the use of our stations, and 65 million gas-free miles. For the past 5 years, we've worked with many municipalities, businesses, property owners, utilities, New York State officials, and we deploy over 400 charging stations in the state of New York alone. More than any other competitor out there, obviously, if we have 70% of the market. This is just leading up to why we're able to tell you what best practices is. We have partnered with NYSERDA, National Grid, Clean City Coalitions, both the Empire Clean City and Long Island, otherwise known as CLIC, installed stations, but most importantly, we collect the data and provide the data to these entities to determine whether or not their programs are successful. Because do you need more stations, do you need less stations? So collecting data is critical. So our interest is to just share with you our best practices that we've learned throughout New York State. The EV market in New York State is growing tremendously. Right now we're the third largest growth rate in the country, New York State. And I can supply statistics if people would like, and I'll make sure if you'd like, I can give you my email address and you can ask for whatever stats you want. Right now, and all for all the wrong reasons, and this is not my testimony, but Suffolk County, Nassau County, and Queens, in that order, are the 3 greatest counties, mainly because driving a plug-in EV or an EV allows them to use the HOV lane. So that's the primary function, whereas if we were in the Bay Area, it's really green, and the savings of fuel in the Bay Area is absolutely incredible because they have the infrastructure to support EV drivers. It's which comes first.
So out on Long Island, they have special lanes for people who have EV?
Just our regular HOV lanes. If you have a New York State, it will give them a sticker that they put on their car. Even the Teslas are putting them on, just so a single person can use an HOV lane if they're in those cars. California does the same thing.
But when you say what HOV?
High occupancy. Usually you need 2 people or more.
Right. So what does it have to do with electric vehicle?
Well, you can do it with a single person. If you're driving an electric vehicle, you don't need multiple occupants in the car.
So it's an exemption from the law.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, recently the Public Service Commission has changed the law in New York State, by the way, to allow charging by the kilowatt. I'll discuss that in a little bit more detail. And with that, I'm going to move on to best practices. There may be a lot of question and answers. The concept of charging for charging, meaning do you charge a fee for the use of the station? best practice is you charge something, either recovering the cost of your electricity, making a small profit. You need the ability to, maybe you charge residents of the town a different amount than non-residents. I'll give you some examples. Target, for example, doesn't charge anything at all for the first 2 hours. And they figure after 2 hours, nobody's going to spend longer than 2 hours in a Target store. So then they bump up the price to get the person off the charging station. So the flexibility to control charging either by types of drivers, do you charge by the kilowatt for a short period of time, but after 4 hours, then you start charging on an hourly basis so somebody else can use the charging station. Typically, well, I'll get into that in a moment. PCI compliance. If you're
Okay,
getting-
before, I
Yes,
guess
go
if it's
ahead.
okay, I mean, technically, since it's a public hearing, it's really
Yeah.
not question and answer, but
But-
since you're the only one here,
Yeah,
you're the
exactly.
expert.
And I came up here, so-
Right, you took
Right.
2 hours, well, don't. Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about the charging stuff, what do municipalities seem to do as opposed to?
It's all over the place. A lot of them do it for free. But then the voters seem to have an issue with that after a while. Also, if it's for free, people will just sit in that. Usually charging stations are in very attractive spots because they have to be close to a source of power.
Right.
They're usually very much like where a handicap spot could be. So people will sit there and they'll be squatters in the spots. So by having some sort of charging fee, that if they're there for X amount of period of time, let the next person come in and charge their car. So most are charging even nominal amounts, and usually they'll allow the pricing to escalate over a period of time. The exceptions to that are airports, railroad stations, where people may leave their car there for days. So then they have different processes of charging. Did that answer? Good. PCI compliance. Obviously, if you're getting involved with any type of collection process, PCI compliance is the payment card industry. You want to make sure that whatever company or vendors you decide on using, and there's tons of vendors out there, that they have the ability to guarantee the security, unlike Target, the security of the credit cards and so on. So PCI compliance should be of interest to you guys when you do get into the time of thinking about actually acquiring charging stations or however you're going to do it. There's lots of different charging stations out there. Level 1 charging station is you plug into 110. Usually everybody that has an electric vehicle, they'll do this when they get home. However, it could take 18 hours to charge some of today's cars with a level 1 charger. A lot of these people will run out to Home Depot or wherever they go, and they'll get an inexpensive level 2 charger, which requires in the home 240 to operate. And usually most commercial chargers are level 2 chargers. And in commercial property, it's usually a 208 voltage connection, 40 amp connection. And that could charge, well, just like a car, depending on how empty it is, how long it takes to charge up. Also, different cars charge at different rates. The average electric vehicle could go from a 0 charge to a full charge in probably about 4 hours on a level 2 charger. However, the charging, the quote, fill-up concept in an electric vehicle is not to fill the car up. They are always looking to top their car off. It's the mindset of an electric vehicle owner. So any opportunity they have. One of the big areas, and NYSERDA has funded a tremendous amount of money across the state. One of our partners, Leviton, is now placing about 80 charging stations in what they call workplace. Because the number 1 place people charge their cars is at home. The second greatest place is where they go to work. Then public sector, and so on. There's something called a DC fast charger, a level 3 charger. That usually runs off of 440 or 480 volts. Big, expensive. They can charge your car in about 20 to 30 minutes. And the practicality of that is at a rest area, where somebody's trying to get from point A to point B, and just like they would need a gas stop at a rest area, they would have this level 2 charging station. But it still will take 20 to 30 minutes to charge, so maybe they'll go grab a hamburger or whatever. They're not practical outside of a rest area type because you don't want squatters on that. The value of a level 3 charger is to turn over the number of vehicles very, very frequently, or else it doesn't pay. You might as well put a level 2 charger there, and level 2 chargers cost a fraction of the cost. Installation costs usually far outweigh the cost of the charging station. Matter of fact, New York City just passed 1176, and somebody wants, I can send you links to all of this. It was passed, I think, the latter part of November, that requires all new parking facilities in New York City or expansion of parking facilities to be pre-wired and have the panel capacity for 20% of the parking spaces. Now, they don't have to put in the stations at this point, but they have to make sure that they're pre-wired for that. There are similar initiatives all over the place. Our governor here has some very strong initiatives, funding through NYSERDA and NYPA. There's grants all over the place. I understand you are pursuing some grants, I think I read, or?
Well, with,
There's a NYSERDA grant to stop the law.
Okay, great. You know, for example, we just put in 12 stations for the city of Rochester, to their municipal garages, based on a combination NYSERDA grant, and I think it was a partial federal grant. So I don't know if the well is dry in those areas, but there has been a bunch of grants out there.
I don't think the well's dry yet.
Good.
Not from what I learned down at the Association of Towns when I went to as many solar stuff as I could go to. There
Excellent.
seems to be a lot of money out there.
Excellent, great. There's a lot of efforts. National Grid had a program with NYSERDA where they placed about 150 stations in New York. So there are programs out there. There are wells of funds out there. And I'm also here to answer any of the questions that you may have.
This may feel like you drove 2 hours. We should.
No. Hey, I go up to Rochester and back the same day, so this is, that's 800 miles.
So, where are they? I guess down on Long Island they're building a lot of these, right?
Well,
Or not necessarily.
and actually, there's a lot of grants going out there in workplace and multi-dwelling units, because if people don't live in a private house and they need to get their charge in the evening, if they're in an apartment co-op, whatever, they need to have a place to charge their car. So there is some growth in that areas. Westchester, there's some growth in that areas. White Plains has a pretty strong infrastructure at their train stations. I guess because the mayor drives an electric vehicle, I guess helped a little bit. A lot of the SUNY units, there's one going in New Paltz right here, right now, one of our stations. So
Did you?
on campus, yeah.
I guess that's one question I would have too, and maybe George could follow up, because we're working with our zoning board right now
Yes, sir.
to require them as part of the site plan to have, in their plan, to have electrical charging station availability, and we're starting to come up with some questions. How do you plan those? Is there been anything in New York where they've come out where they've said, like, here's how many spaces you should have? And just so you know, I'm interested that SUNY has it, because there's a plan.
Oh, there's that's the smallest SUNY deployment we have. I mean, Stony Brook has like a dozen stations.
How many are they planning to put in at SUNY?
Right now, they have one via grant, via this Leviton grant. And by the way, Leviton does have some of these stations available. They have to go into workplace. So they have to go to a facility that has 35 employees or greater. And the concept is to make the station available at their place of employment so they can obviously get an electric vehicle and commute and so on.
What is the police car
Who's
charging?
the manufacturer?
I'm sorry?
Who's Leviton?
Leviton is based out of Melville, Long Island. They're an international, I'm looking at your light switches on the wall. If you go to Home Depot, most of the light switches made there are made by Leviton. They're a big electrical manufacturer. We actually manufacture their stations for them. It's private label for them. That's why we're involved in their grant.
Leviton is, what's Leviton? Is that another?
Leviton is a very, very large, multi-billion-dollar electrical manufacturer. They cabling, wiring. Most of the electrical supply houses you'll see will buy some of their product, if not a lot of their product, from this company called Leviton.
And Leviton's funding grants?
No, NYSERDA gave them $1 million grants.
NYSERDA gave Leviton.
Yes, Leviton is administering the grants, and they're putting in 82 stations. Only about, I'll safely say, and I'll be there tomorrow, but there's probably at least 30 to 40 still available. They fund 85% of the cost of the station installed.
Approximately how much would that be?
I think in their case, it's about $11,000.
11,000 total cost, of which 80%.
Right, with installation costs. Basically, the station is paid for. NYSERDA has a special program of 4 years of software to collect the data, NYSERDA software, which we've developed, collects a tremendous amount of data, and it also collects the data every 15 minutes as opposed to once a day.
So it's about $11,000 cost to put in one of these stations, of
No,
which,
no.
okay.
It could
There
cost-
is TV and there is press, because I see you looking around, so.
No, I was looking to see if there was an electrical panel.
Oh, okay, I was,
I have no issue with what I'm saying.
oh, okay, I just did the way you looked around.
I know, you
because
just said Empire State College a couple
I mean,
of
you
weeks
just looked
ago.
over at the TV and him, right?
I just hope that it has a slimming factor, that's all, no. So the cost of installing...
I got
Sure,
to
sure.
interrupt for just 1 second. Why don't you just, it's, I got to grab him for 1 second, I'm
To
sorry.
answer your question, sir.
Yes.
Kevin, I guess?
Jeff,
It says Kevin over there.
I can be Kevin.
Okay, I see Jeff next.
Yeah, Susan, Jeff, Kevin, doesn't, yes, I
There's no
apologize.
rule of thumb. The most recent hardcore fact of percentage of spots has been New York City, where they've mandated 20% to be pre-wired and have the electrical capacity. That doesn't mean they have to put in that many stations, they just have to be able to support the station and the growth. The city of New York alone has about 150 stations just for their fleet, because they have a lot of electric fleet vehicles. So they have a pretty strong infrastructure just to support their own internal needs. Also, with New York City, there's very few single-family homes in New York City. It's mostly MDUs or public parking garages, or private parking garages. So they in order to accelerate the growth, they passed this, and it went with flying colors. Now, getting back to...
Yes, thank
So
you.
the cost,
Pretty good.
But I'm sorry, wait, and George, 20%, that would seem,
Ambitious.
yes.
Okay.
I was trying to
You.
find, I was trying to find the correct word, that would be,
But it's future oriented.
yes.
and I have to agree with you.
Because again, though, I think you said the key word, which is you want to be prepared for 20%.
People digging up the parking lot.
Right.
So basically, to be prepared for it is, the primary thing is to have panel capacity.
I'm Jeff.
Then if you install one station, you have a big conduit going to it underneath the parking lot. So later on, if you have to pull more wires to that end of the parking lot, it's far less costly, which gets to the cost of install. If there was a panel on this wall and there were parking spaces on the other side, and you put a wall unit up against that wall, the install could cost $500.
Now, we had a applicant, though, for example, there's a large project being planned, and I'm not sure, George, you were there, which was wondering the logic of laying dark fiber or dark tubing, because the technology in 3, 5, 7 years may outstrip that need.
You basically need the panel capacity and the pipe to allow you to pull whatever you need in 5 or 6 years.
So if you just throw dark pipe in,
Your PVC,
yeah,
whatever your code is. Right.
yeah, okay.
There's also the average charging station, level 2 charging station, needs a 40 amp circuit. If it's a dual charging station, which is becoming popular now, one podium with two, that could do 2 cars, or wall mounted 2 cars, obviously you then need 2 40 amp circuits. So again, panel capacity, you have to keep that in mind, of where you're not gonna tap into the local light pole and get power for this.
No, okay, good. So
There was one
$500.
install in Hawaii that was like $70,000 just for the installation, because they had to go through lava rock or something.
You gotta go to Russia.
Yeah. So, if you want charging stations in the middle of a parking lot, it's gonna be very costly, because the runs underneath the parking lot can be very expensive.
So, 2 things. Are you familiar with the charging station at Frito-Lay
No.
here in New Paltz? Because Frito-Lay has a really aggressive zero waste initiative and
They're
recycling
very
or whatever.
green.
They're incredibly green. I mean, I got a tour of everything they're doing. It's amazing. But they actually have, at least here in the New Paltz one, I don't know if more than one. They definitely have one, if not more, electric charging delivery trucks, and then they
Right.
actually have a charging station. Now, they can't go further than like 20 miles out to Poughkeepsie, so they can get there and back in order to be able to charge. But they have a big, gigantic delivery truck that's green, and they have a charging station right there in their parking lot behind Frito-Lay.
A lot of municipalities are getting electric vehicles to add to, or plug-in electric vehicles like a Volt, to add to their fleet because they can be very cost-effective. Meter readers or whatever the case may be, where they're doing a lot of stop and go, but their overall mileage during the course of the day is not that great. They're literally not using any fuel at all. And they're charging at night, and the electric rates up here are relatively low, especially compared to where.
At least for now, until we do our resolution tonight on the high-capacity zone, that's going to increase our rates and all that. But for
So
the
never
moment-
come close to what we are down in Long Island. It's sinful. Questions, sir?
Not yet.
Has the Thruway, is the state looking at all to look at
If
possibly?
they're going to do anything at all, it would be level 3 chargers. They could be horrendously expensive to. The chargers could cost $20,000 to $40,000 each. The install could cost at least that, because you need serious power to charge a car that fast. For commuters, for municipalities putting it in a train facility, it's just not cost effective, and nobody needs to charge the car in 20 minutes.
So for someone who's going on the highway who maybe has an electric car, how do they know that, say, New Paltz has an electric car station?
Well, for example, I don't want to do the plug, but you asked the question.
Yeah.
Our ChargePoint network, there's an app for your phone. But never mind the app for your phone,
Yeah.
we now have it inside the vehicle dashes themselves. So Nissan, the Leaf, Chevy, Volt, Spark, we'll have it in the new Caddy. BMW happens to be one of our investors, it's in their cars. So the car, matter of fact, the car will figure out what your range is and then populate something within your range to make sure you can get to the station. But even more important, is the station occupied? So these same apps can tell them if the station's available or not. Does the station accept reservations? Most people don't accept reservations, because then people never show up, just like any business with reservations. But these apps can get pretty sophisticated, because the last thing you want to do is plan on going from point A to point B. You need to stop somewhere. You'll go have dinner or something like that, but the station's not available when you get there. So the apps will take care of all of that. Sure, Greg.
Yeah, I was just thinking that maybe people would then be stopping in New Paltz to
Well-
charge their car.
Well, I was actually just trying to wonder if there was any opportunity with the state, with NYSERDA and the state and the grants, to actually try to see if there wasn't a way we could work with them to get,
Sign up.
some charging stations right here at the, at the
Oh,
at the
yes.
bus stop,
Well, that
right
was
off the
one of the
Thruway.
discussions is we have a large commuter lot. I don't know if you noticed it coming off the Thruway when you came off on
I
the
was too
left.
busy talking on the phone, probably.
Hands-free. Thank you very much. You still,
By habit, I go like this.
and I still do this to open a window too, right? Yeah, no, I'm with you, don't worry. But
Do you remember that, Dan?
when you, yeah, Dan, that's how you used to open windows. To the left there was, someone had sent us all, and I don't know if anyone read it, it was interesting about using solar panels for electrical charging. And there actually are some grants out there for that. Is there any viability to
Oh,
those?
totally. My wife teaches at SUNY Farmingdale, and they have a big canopy with 10 stations underneath. Unfortunately, they put it in such a place on the campus that nobody parks there, because you have to walk like a mile to get to the classrooms. But it's becoming very popular. We're doing some supermarkets, believe it or not, in Staten Island, where they're putting in, I think it's called Key Foods or something like that, where they're putting in canopies with our charging stations. They still will connect to the grid, because on
Yeah.
like snow days, and we've been having a bunch of those. And in some cases, it all comes down to cost and how high-tech you want to be, you can actually put in battery packs that could, store for off times that you're off the grid. So that's not unpractical. It can be very practical. Obviously, it ups the cost to the cost of the solar panel itself. But yes, and often there are different buckets to get that type of funding, because the solar is involved.
There were some grants, actually there's some grants out there right now for the solar canopies.
Hooking up a charging station to that. Matter of fact, the way some of the canopies are built, there's a little bit of savings, because you can use wall mounts units attached to the posts that hold the canopy up. There are companies that make very small canopies, enough to charge for one charging station. So if the cost of running the install under the lot to the panel can get very expensive, you can make this freestanding unit. However, it's pretty costly as a freestanding unit, and this is no connection to the grid whatsoever. If there isn't any sun, there isn't any power. So, but yeah.
And you said SUNY Farmington has those right now?
Yes, Farmingdale.
Farmingdale.
I can get you a list, and I can send you some links of various installs around the country where they have canopies. Some are really, really nice, and some look like they put it together with a erector set. And it's like everything else.
Have you seen these used in any tourist connection where you,
Destinations.
Destinations.
We just did Disney World, Disneyland. We haven't done Disney World yet. But any type of destinations, racetracks, casinos, vineyards, any place where somebody's going to go and hang out for 2 to 4 hours could be a very, very attractive area for charging.
for instance, in the municipal lot, there?
You have a quaint town, you want people to shop.
Yeah.
And we're doing this in the village of Southampton. We actually have a video display on ours, so they have little videos, 30 or 60-second videos for the different merchants. So if I pull up in front of a hardware store, I don't need the video for the hardware store because I can see it, but there may be a video for Martha's Crafts at the other end of the main street. So, yeah, that's, destination towns like Southampton out in the Hamptons on Long Island are going to be very popular.
Are there installations that you know about around here that you've done? Like
That our company has done, yes. I'm new in this position, so I would go home, log online, look at my map, and
Use your phone.
what? Or my phone? No, not with these hands.
He says that for the phone.
Within the Hudson Valley, do you know anything else on
There's a tremendous. There's some good saturation in the capital district.
that? Okay.
To believe it or not,
Governor's really into this.
north of us, Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo area, and a lot of this has been National Grid and NYSERDA populating those areas. So there's coverage there. I just did Livingston Manor.
It's not far from here.
Okay, we just sold one. It's just was shipped today to a guy that's building a brewery.
Ramsey.
What's that?
I know exactly who you're talking about. They're building a state-of-the-art brew pub
Yeah,
that's
like
going to be
Natural
complete.
Global Foods or
It's going to be
something like-
completely green, completely
Yeah,
whatever.
yep, and
He's-
his station was shipped today. His
Uh-huh.
station was shipped today.
I'll have to send him a congratulations.
Randy Lewis.
Ramsey Adams.
Okay, no, maybe I should see that.
Well,
one.
it could be his partner.
Okay.
It's probably his
Okay.
partner.
But yes, destinations seem to be.
That's come out with people.
Via Grants again on the south shore of Long Island, a lot of Jones Beach area, Fire Island, those areas on the barrier islands, parks there have stations. And pretty good. Town of Babylon probably has about 30 or 40 stations.
Are there any counties or municipal
Entities.
entities, but not consolidation? The push now is for shared services, regional approaches to things like that. Is there any example of that down in Long Island? Where somebody sort of coordinates all this stuff?
We have GLIC, Greater Long Island Clean Cities Coalition, that theoretically should be coordinating this stuff. They have a grant, and it's taken them a year to find homes for them, so there are some deficiencies in that. I know out in California, there's municipalities are going crazy putting in stations, and I think in the Bay Area, there actually are some of these consortiums or co-ops of municipalities. I can look into that for you. Obviously, you may want to speak to them, and we can arrange that as well.
But right now, George, we're the only town in the county that's even,
Well, yeah, that's one of the points that I skipped, but I believe you are the only town in the county that is being as proactive as you are. It's a tremendous move. Whether you put in stations or not, to make sure the infrastructure's there when and if you feel the need for the stations.
okay. So does anybody else have any other questions or any other? Okay, I really thank you so
My
much for
pleasure.
driving up and coming up and.
I'll leave this, and if anybody wants any of the links that I spoke about, just send me an
Sure.
maybe I'll zap whoever
Just
they
put it
feel.
on
Want
this
to
folder.
install a sample thing here, so they
I have a demo of my car, no. We do work with municipalities to help kickstart things. We actually have special financing arrangements specifically for municipalities. This thing's still running.
Yeah,
Through Key Bank. And it's actually designed in such a manner that even though it may be, let's say, a 5-year engagement, if all of a sudden the town can't approve a budget, we will allow the town to get out of the financing agreements, which is pretty unique for financing agreements, because it's a very common issue with municipalities.
Especially in a cap
One of
environment,
our
and now
original
in freeze.
founders used to be the mayor of Cupertino, and so he's very, very focused on municipalities. Very good. Thank you so much for your
Oh,
time.
thank you so
No,
much.
thank
Thank
you.
you,
My
really,
pleasure.
thank you for,
Thanks for making the trip.
so,
You're leaving a card, right?
I think I just put one right over there.
and did you see our law? I mean, do you review law, do you,
I briefly read it last night in the wee hours.
okay, so I gather since you haven't said any criticism of our law, that you think for the moment we're okay?
Yeah, I think one of the issues are what thresholds you want to set for it, and you don't want to be overly optimistic, again, as a vendor that may eventually be vying for your business, if something goes out for bid or something like that. I would obviously love to see large numbers, but are they realistic? It's one of those things, if you build it, they will come, but you don't want to build such a big infrastructure and then wait 10 years to have the volume of vehicles. And this is where being able to collect the data, even if you put in a few stations, the data that you collect on the network at any given time, you can see, well, we're starting to get saturated, we need to get more stations. Or this area is not getting any activity at all, maybe we move that station to someplace else.
Well, he wrote the law, so you could congratulate him.
But I think that was our thought, though, and George and I, we were both at a planning meeting discussing this, is how much do you plan for to have dark fiber running? And I think that's also a builder's concern, too, because there's a cost to it also.
Again, the big key is panel capacity and the pipe on the conduit underneath the parking lot. You should probably plan on about 5% coverage out of the gates. You know, if you have 100 spots, having 2 dual stations, which would give you 4 cars, would give you pretty good exposure. With the knowledge, knowing that if you wanted to add 2 or 3 more stations after that, the cost is just running the conduit feet, as opposed to, dozens or hundreds of feet.
So you would have data to support that? Because when I checked with NYSERDA, they indicated there's relatively few EVs in this.
And there may very well be. It's the chicken and egg thing, and I can probably, if you send me an email, I can probably give you the statistics by county, even down to the particular make and model.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for making this trip.
So, do you want to make
Can I make a motion to close the public hearing?
do I have a second?
Second.
And you don't think we'll have to do any amendments or anything based on anything we learned tonight?
No.
Okay, so, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motions are carried. Go.
Do seeker.
Well, all we did was
During
close the public hearing.
Oh, you closed it here.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
closing the hearing now, yeah.
Okay.
That's all we
Don't have
did
to have
was that-
seeker for that.
So we don't actually have adopting it on here, although if we want to add it since we have you here, and we could just do it with you, that might make more sense, I don't know.
Unless, George, you had anything else that you've discovered on,
No, this is, it may at some point need to be tweaked based upon the,
Okay. Well,
Take that, or we'll move you over here to, go ahead.
It may, at some point in the future, need to be tweaked a little bit, depending on how the industry develops. But I think if the infrastructure is put in place here, it allows for a lot of flexibility as to when things are installed and what's installed. So I think we're good with what we've got right now.
We don't necessarily have, do we have documents that we need to be prepared if we were to adopt it tonight? Or we could just, you could,
You have a short form EAF that Dave Clausen prepared. You could review that, determine if there's significant impact, and
oh,
make a
okay.
determination.
Well, we're
I
not,
don't have a short form EAF.
It's right
and,
there. It's right there.
I was not able to review the law between last night and coming to the meeting tonight.
Okay.
So I'm not prepared. But
Okay,
if the
fine.
rest of you want to, that's okay. I'm just letting you know, Aaron.
Up to,
So here, I don't need to read it then.
I mean, I did read it, but Kevin's not here and James hasn't looked at it yet, so if we want to wait, that's all right too.
we can, it was just because George was here that,
No, I hear.
I'm okay waiting, because, I didn't pull up the short form on it either, so
Okay.
I'm okay waiting also.
okay, so here, we'll do it maybe next week. You'll be here next week anyway. Okay, so I'd like to open up the town board meeting. Do I have a
So
motion?
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Can we please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I have nothing to add to the agenda unless, do you want to add the town seal?
I would. I'd like to add adopting or readopting the town seal of the town of New Paltz.
Okay. Anything else anybody wants, or are we okay to move?
I would ask that, can we do our client consultation first if the attorney's on the clock?
We can. We can,
Rather than making him wait for all
we
this
can.
stuff?
I think you're here probably for the annexation, right?
Right.
Which we probably will not be doing tonight. I mean, we're going to discuss it and address it, but I don't think we'll be able to take action, because I think we do have to do it with the village, but we will talk about it, but, but we can do that.
Okay, well then, do you want to talk about the annexation and then consult with the attorney?
We could do that.
Okay.
Okay, is everybody okay with that? Okay, so do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Do I have a-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. Okay, so for announcements, first announcement I want to make is I hope everybody sees our beautiful new chairs that we have here. If everybody remembers correctly, we had pretty mixed-matched chairs, and a lot of the chairs, I think former Supervisor Dave Lent from back in 1990 bought those chairs used from IBM that we've had here for 25 years that have sort of been falling apart and stuff. And Laura, through her reuse center, it's absolutely amazing what she does. She just, the other day, we went over to the DEC. The DEC is knocking down their annexes and building a brand-new building, and they're getting rid of a lot of furniture, and they're donating it all to the reuse center. So we all went over there, a bunch of department heads. When I asked the department heads to go with me there, because we were having a department head meeting, and we went, and we have a bunch of new tables that will be matching, that are beautiful, that are downstairs, that will hopefully be up here by next week. We have a bunch of bookcases. There were, oh God, I don't know. There was so much stuff that we're using for town hall to get better furniture in here without costing the taxpayers anything. And everything we have in here is pretty much broken down like the building and stuff. And so we're still not spending taxpayers' money. But Laura got these chairs from the Holiday Inn for $10 a chair. So we just got 12 chairs for $120 of this caliber, and we finally have matching chairs, which has been my aim.
Of course, your assistant negotiated, instead of $10 a chair, she gave me the ones you had here, so I'll charge $10 a piece for those, and it'll be a wash.
Right, so she's selling our other chairs, and so it's going to cost us nothing. But I want to thank Laura for finally, these are gorgeous chairs, Laura. They're beautiful chairs, $10 a chair, $120, 12 chairs, upholstered. And now we look a little more professional, like we match, you know? So I want to thank you, Laura, very much. The other, I also want to comment that Woodland Pond, as soon as when Woodland Pond was built, the last administration did not bill Woodland Pond the correct amount of money for the water and sewer usage. So there's been a really outstanding debt for a long time. And we got on top of it, reviewed it all, met with Woodland Pond, and I am pleased to say that we had got $30,000 delivered to us the other day on behalf of the Water District and Sewer District. And so that's another outstanding debt that we just closed out, and Woodland Pond was really wonderful about working with us on settling this debt. So I just want to announce that, because we just got the second check in, which closes it out. And the only other thing is that there is an invitation from Family of New Paltz and the New Paltz Community Foundation for an open house Sunday, February 23rd, from 2 to 4, to come see their new finished inside. And they just raised money and rebuilt the whole inside of Family, and it's supposedly beautiful. And they're doing an open house to the community from 2 to 4 on Sunday the 23rd. So everybody's welcome, and please go support Family of New Paltz. So that's my announcements. Does anybody else on the board have anything? Nope. Okay, so with that, we'll just get into the agenda. Oh, well, first of all, public comment. Does anybody want to speak during public comment? Nobody? Okay, so on the annexation, what ended up happening was that, as you know, the village and the town were petitioned for annexation of a particular piece of property on the corner of Sunset Ridge and 32. And the village established, had a public hearing when we were there last week. And because of the question of annexation and Park Point coming up, that day I did a lot of research, so because of the research on the Park Point village annexation, I ended up getting a lot of information sent to me on this annexation. And so I had been told that, when I looked through all the stuff that was sent to me, that the town and the village had to have a joint public hearing. The village had the public hearing, I think they closed it, but they were supposed to check into it. But I did get in touch with Joe Moriello, our town attorney, and asked him, again, his opinion of what he thought. And in essence, what he wrote and said was, and I sent you all the email, he wrote and said, let me see if I can see what I sent him. I said, I thought I saw that if one board has a public hearing without the other board, then the other board can hold the hearing separately. Am I correct? Because when I read through everything, I thought that if one municipality did hold it, that you could hold the public hearing separately. So that's why I wrote to Joe and said, I thought I saw that if one board has a public hearing without the other board, then the other board can hold the hearing separately. Am I correct? And Joe's response was, Susan, as usual, it's complicated. General Municipal Law, Section 704, Subdivision 3, provides in its pertinent parts that if either the town or the village fail to publish and mail the required notice of a joint public hearing, or if the town failed to mail copies of the notice of a public hearing to the proper parties, the other board, if that board determines it is to be desirable, may amend and republish its notice and publish a notice on behalf of the town, but such may only be done during the additional 20 days following the 40-day period since the mailing of the republished entity's public hearing notice. As I understand it, the town has not published or mailed a notice of a joint public hearing with the village upon the petition, and the village purported to hold a public hearing on the issue. Assuming that the village gave notice of a public hearing, but not of a joint public hearing, the argument could be made that the village's notice was not in compliance with general municipal law for a joint public hearing in the first instance, and therefore it would not be proper for it to republish a notice at the end of the 40-day period. Bottom line, the intent of the statute is to do things a certain way, providing proper and effective notice of the matter to be heard to all interested persons in the two territories. To that end, the statute envisions that the two governing bodies will cooperate to hold a public hearing and to give proper notice to all persons in both the town and the village. As you know, it is generally better and more cost-effective to follow the correct procedures from the outset, and if it appears early that a proper procedure was not followed, to regroup, to correct the error promptly, restart the process, and move things that the statute intends them to be moved. Here I would suggest that the town and the village agree on a joint public hearing date not less than 20 nor more than 40 days from publication and mailing of the proper notice, and have the respective clerks publish and send the required notices in a timely fashion. Setting the date will need input from the clerks of each respective governing body because of publication deadlines, publication dates, etc. This will get the boards to a joint public hearing at which the petition can be considered. Be mindful that seeker must be followed as a part of the process, and so the two boards should also be discussing who will assist the boards in getting through the seeker process. It appears to be an unlisted action, but that should be confirmed. Hope this helps. So,
So what do we got, 2 days left? Be within the 40 days? When did they first notice it?
well, I think they noticed the village before you noticed the town, right? I think you sent the
Well,
village...
when are we having a public hearing on this?
Excuse me?
We didn't schedule a public hearing.
We never scheduled a public hearing.
Right,
What
so I'm saying,
happened?
don't we have 40 days from when the village scheduled when they scheduled their
Well,
public hearing?
why don't you give this to
Or have
George, who's a lawyer? I think you
misinterpreted?
misinterpreted.
You're right.
I think what I
Gene, I thought, weren't you on the village board when we did and I apologize if you weren't,
Floyd
remember?
Floyd Niffen.
The Floyd Niffen.
Yes, I
that's
did.
it.
And we held,
Yes, you did.
I remember we held a joint meeting
He was
on
also
that.
on it from Mulberry Square.
Now, I wasn't on for Mulberry Square, but I was on for Niffen,
microphone.
and I do remember it was a joint meeting, and we just both publicly noticed it.
It-
and
well-
everything was sent out, and then it was just done all at one meeting.
Absolutely.
Right, but I think the point is that the village, unless I misunderstood, the village has held a public hearing on a potential annexation of your parcel. Is that correct?
I don't think it was ever closed.
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
Well, they didn't close it because I brought up,
Yes.
because I brought this issue up.
Okay.
I think I found that, yeah, it was closed.
Oh,
It was left over.
okay,
Yeah.
Because-
all right.
Because at the
Okay.
meeting, I brought up the issue that I thought we had to do it jointly.
Okay.
And because of that, they
So
chose
then
not
let
to
me
close
ask you a
it.
question. So if theirs is left open, it probably, from my interpretation of it's complicated and all of that, I don't really care whether theirs is open or closed. I care when they noticed it, and will notice a joint public hearing within the 20 or 40 days, whatever it says in there, and let's get moving, in my opinion.
In your opinion, they had a public hearing.
Right.
I did the research based on whatever. What I
It needs
believe,
to be joint,
what I
right?
believe I'm being told, according to our town attorney, is that to do this properly, we should be having the two clerks get together, come up with a
Right.
date, and notice a joint public hearing.
Right.
And that's what
Agreed.
that seems to say.
Exactly, what I'm
So-
saying.
That's what we should do.
Exactly, within that time frame, 20, 40 days.
I don't know when we got notice of their annex.
No, when the village noticed.
When you got, the village got it, we got it?
Yeah, I gave it to the village and
It
town.
was probably a week later
Yes.
when the town got it from the village.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
because what happened is it went to the, because I had heard about it, because I went to a village meeting for a particular issue, I heard about it, okay, and I saw it and I heard about it, and so then I went to the village board meeting. I went
Yeah,
to,
you left and you came back.
I came back specifically so I could listen to the annexation, because I didn't know what this was all about, and I knew we were gonna have to get involved. Next thing I know, the next day, we got the note, my assistant said, we just got a notice from you guys and stuff, so we got it after the fact.
Well, the building department somehow
You need the
received it.
microphone.
Right. They received it on January 15th. So.
Right. The building
February 25th. So what did I initially say? What do we got? 2 days left?
But wait a second, calm down for a second, Jean,
Well,
calm
the
down for a
building
minute.
department got it January 15th.
But we didn't get it
I
up in.
didn't actually get it until January 22nd because it didn't make its way to me until then. And that's the same day that I forwarded it to the town board.
Right, so technically, I think
January 22nd.
so I think we technically have to count it from when it was delivered to the clerk, because that's,
Okay.
so,
Today is February 20th.
It's asking that you use the microphone.
so,
Okay.
it's
So what do
between,
we have? 12 days left.
what is it, Joe? It's between 20 and 40 days when you have to do it?
20 or 40 days from publication of the notice.
Okay.
But we didn't publish the note, we didn't.
We didn't. So I'm asking if it matters when the village made a publication for their independent public hearing, when,
It does, it seems to
What-
me, according to that, it doesn't matter what the village did, they did it incorrectly, and so we have to
Right, so-
correctly, we need to notice, the two clerks need to make a joint meeting, notice it, hold a public hearing, and from whenever you notice it, you,
Well, I spoke to I didn't actually speak to the village clerk because she was out sick, but she said there wouldn't be a joint meeting until next month. That's what
Well-
she's told me.
okay, wait a minute. No, let's figure out what our time frame is, and we will have a joint meeting for this. This is crazy. I know, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying that this is an awful lot of runaround for a single joint public hearing on this annexation.
we have an attorney.
It's counting days.
Yes,
Either of your,
we need the microphone.
Either March 20th or March 27th seems to work within that 20 and 40
Okay, and when is that, when's the third Thursday? Is that March 20th?
That's the 20th.
So they're invited to come, it's the fourth Thursday they're coming to us. I think we said we were gonna do the fourth Wednesday and the fourth Thursday. So does the fourth Thursday fit in?
Yes.
Okay, so if we schedule it for the fourth Thursday,
Publish a notice.
which they're supposed to be here anyway,
The
we can do a joint notice for the meeting, for a public hearing that night.
the only concern is making sure that the village approves the notice as well.
Well,
It's not for it to be published.
Oh, because
Well-
they have to set it, right?
Okay, but wait a minute. If the village already held an independent public hearing to discuss this annexation with their constituents, would it be safe to assume that they would be willing to have a joint public hearing on this annexation?
I think it's reasonable to assume that. The question is, when do they meet so they can authorize it? When's the next actual vote?
No,
for it?
second and third Wednesday of the month. Or first and third, I forget.
Second and fourth.
And George,
Second and fourth.
we do not need to approve the annexation
No, it's just-
that night.
No.
We need to have the joint meeting that
Right.
night to be
We need to have the
within.
hearing
Right.
of the public out.
We need the hearing, and the hearing can remain open after that date.
So let me ask you a question. If they notice, if we notice, it has to be a joint, you have to notice it together. So if it was if we authorize tonight to set the public hearing for that night, and then they do it on their second meeting, is there enough time, notice-wise, for it to be
Yes.
for the 4th?
If they agree at their next meeting, which is
Right.
next Wednesday, if they agree to March 27th, there would be enough time
Okay.
to notice.
So then
Okay.
why don't we...
Is that our
I'd
plan?
Yes, I'd like to ask for a motion from the town board to set a public hearing jointly with the village on annexation of
Sunset Ridge property.
the Sunset
So
Ridge
moved.
property for March 27th, and have the...
Joint with the village, absolutely. What,
I'm not
7:15
done.
or 7?
I'm not done with the motion.
I'm sorry.
Okay, well, you could say for 7:15 here at Town Hall,
Okay.
and then, and have the clerk notify the village clerk so they could do the joint notice,
And what date is that again?
March 27th.
which is fourth Thursday.
Exactly.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I think we already had a motion.
Then I'll second, whichever.
All- Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hallelujah.
Motion so carried.
Aye.
You're welcome.
Thank
You
you.
just want it to be done right, because
Well-
otherwise...
No, I
Understood.
I don't know how.
15 years in the making, right?
I'm with you.
So much.
You're welcome.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, very, very quickly,
Move into executive session.
well, we can, but, we actually have we have the capacity zone resolution, the town map, which we're going to need George for on that anyway, historian job description,
We'll
but...
see. Thank you.
So why don't we do the official town map, because we need George anyway for that, and then we could maybe do the new capacity zone resolutions also, because that's just a little bit more complicated, that George might need to jump in, but maybe not, and then we could go into executive session, because then we'll come back and talk about the historian, and then just do some of these
Yeah,
other
and
reports.
I meant to mention it. The historian we're actually going to pull because the historical preservation committee meeting was canceled.
Okay, you should have done it when we were adopting the agenda. You want to amend the agenda?
All right.
Well, when we get to it, you'll ask to table it.
That's fine. Okay.
Okay? So, the town map. I will start, then I'll turn it over to George real quick. Before you came on the board, we were asked, there's a couple of roads that cannot get building permits because their frontage doesn't abut a town road.
Shown on the official map.
It's not shown on the official map. We were asked a while ago to amend the official map, and at the time when we had this conversation, we were being asked also to look at open development versus just putting it on the map, right? Is that right? We could do an open development, or they have to be on the map,
Correct.
okay? And we had a long discussion about open developments, and some of us who had experience with it in the past and wasn't pleasant, were not willing to do it. Councilman Logan and Councilwoman Brown wanted to do the open development, but we chose, the board, majority of the board voted not to do the open development.
Well, wait, we
Not to
actually,
pursue.
we chose to take no action, actually. We didn't.
No, we
took-
actually voted not to do the open development and just do it through the town map.
Absolutely not.
We went back and looked through the minutes, because we had to see what kind of action we have to take. So we had to go back and look at the action we have to take, so we had to go back and look at the minutes, and we're gonna have to actually take action because we voted to not do the open development. Right, George? I can go back and get the minutes, but I thought,
You directed Joe to do local law, take some, prepare a local law.
To do a
amend
local-
the official map.
But we did
So
not
we didn't take
it-
action on the ODA.
We took no, okay. So we're both correct.
Okay, so-
We vote,
Right.
if we did vote, which I will take into question too, I'd like to see the minutes, but the action was to take no action because there is also a lot of reasons why open development does make more sense.
Well, that's okay,
than-
we're going to vote to do open development tonight, so so that's where
Well,
we're
I do-
going. That's where we're going, so you're going to be happy.
I'm happy either way.
Okay.
I'm
So
always
anyway,
happy.
we didn't want to, we didn't vote to do the ODA, we voted to have George, to have Joe
Joe.
Morello draft a local law to amend the town map.
Yes.
When Joe started to look into this, there became a problem, of which I will turn it over to George to explain the problem, which is why it's on the agenda tonight for us to, so you need a microphone.
The,
I feel like I should sing.
Go ahead.
I couldn't possibly sing about Town Law 288. The town law
Be flat.
requires, the town law requires, according to a case in the third department where this town is located, that property, in order to receive a building permit, have at least 15 feet of actual frontage on a street shown on the official map. The proposal to amend the official map proposed that there should be a new classification of right-of-way, which could be an easement, similar to what you find up at the end of Rose Lane. That would solve the problem of having it shown on the official map, but it would not solve the problem that Town Law 288 interposes of having actual frontage on a street. So the conclusion we came to was the town could do one of two things. It could supersede Town Law 288 and say, notwithstanding this is the general practice in the state, in our town we have something unique, we need to do it a different way. You do have power to do that in many cases. The alternative is go back and revisit ODA, which is specifically allowed by Town Law 288. And the advantage that I think we saw to that is, if a road is shown on the map, it's presumed to be an acceptable right-of-way for purposes of building permits. The building inspector could, if a road wasn't completed, make a determination it had not been sufficiently approved and not issue a building permit unless and until it was. But there's a burden of proof that comes upon the building inspector to make that showing. So if the road is, in a subdivision, for instance, you can have a base course down, but not the full course. So that became problematic because the building inspector is going to have a presumption that she should issue a building permit unless she goes through and determines and shows that she shouldn't. With an open development area, you will have the opportunity to make that determination in consultation with the planning board. So the applicant has to come in. I would recommend you adopt guidelines for roadways that will become the access way in an open development area. And the applicant has to come in and show you that road will be suitable, will be appropriately maintained, and it will provide access to the properties that are providing, that will have access by the open development area. So the applicant has that burden of proof, and if it meets it, you have the ability to grant the open development area. If it doesn't, you can basically point to deficiencies and say, you haven't met our guidelines, and either deny it or deny it with conditions. So it seems to reserve, you have to go through a process.
No, and I'm just one interruption. One is, you said deny with conditions, you mean approve with the conditions? Or deny, or they're both one and the same?
If you approve an open development area, it can have conditions as well. But deny in the sense that, no, we're not going to grant it, period, because of circumstances regarding access. Or one that says, we will deny this unless you can make the following improvements. And let the applicant, if there's drainage that's required, if there's guardrails, there's something that you need in order to ensure yourself that there will be safe access to the properties that are going to be, the buildings that will be constructed on those properties. That can be a requirement of your granting the open development area. And that's done in consultation with the planning board. You can refer it to the planning board for review and recommendation as to conditions, and that can take some of the, I think the one unfortunate experience I think Susan was referring to, where it got complicated and you had to go through a lot of meetings and time.
And I think the one thing, too, to point out for those that weren't on the board is this came to issue.
Move the microphone closer. He's okay?
I'm okay. I'm usually accused of being too loud anyway. It came to issue because tax bills were changed drastically. People were being taxed as a building lot, and then all of a sudden their tax bills were tremendously reduced because they could not build on the lots. So the tax bills were then adjusted from, directionally, the numbers are correct, I don't remember the exact numbers, but paying a few $1,000s a year to then paying several $100s a year. So they are being currently taxed correctly, is right on the line. If I remember too, there is 5 or 8 properties total that have this, that would require an ODA, and there is about 2 of them, I believe, that are interested in developing. The real concern is all of the properties are in very sensitive areas. New Paltz has since exhausted most of the very easy areas to develop, as though any area is easy to develop, but areas that allow density or areas that can be easily developed without having involving wetlands or view sheds or other sensitive areas or allowing access. And even one of them is on a road where the actual property already at the end of the road isn't quite where it was supposed to be, and there's already some interesting conditions that have been developed on that area that an ODA would allow us now to put conditions on it should they want to develop it. So that was always my concern of an ODA, is that all of the properties concerned, and I apologize, I didn't bring the file of the exact properties, but all of the properties involved are in very sensitive areas, whether it be a view shed, whether it be a wetland, or whether it be steep slopes.
Are these particular parcels, are they landlocked?
I cannot answer. One of them is actually landlocked by the property owner itself. So the property owner owns both the lot next to it and a lot they would like to develop, or
So
they
you can't subdivide? So what do you?
They own both of them. They are divided lots already, and they would like to sell the other lot. So the landlocked portion, I think George needs to answer that better than I.
Well, they can't build because they can't get a building permit because they're not on a town road.
Well,
Because the road doesn't, because they're not.
I think George needs to define private road and town road also, though, because we're mixing those a little bit
I think I
here.
need to define landlocked.
Yes.
Landlocked typically is used in the sense of not having access to your parcel from a public way.
Right.
If you have an easement over the intervening parcel, you can have access. But under Town Law 288, you can't get a building permit if you don't have direct frontage on a public highway. And that's the result of this case that came out about 4 or 5 years ago. Well, that was the conclusion the board reached, is you gotta have frontage on a public highway.
So there are lots that want to get building permits that can't, because right now they don't have frontage on a town road that's shown on the town map.
Correct.
And so if it's not shown on the town map, it's not a town road, it doesn't exist, you can't get a building permit. So they were asked to be, so we had directed Dave to include 2 roads on the town map, if I remember correctly, but then it wasn't that simple.
Right, and I'm confused, why were the roads not included on the maps to begin with?
They probably didn't go that far.
Well, give the definition also between private road and public road. That might help a little bit, too.
Well, basically, a public road is one that's maintained either by the town or some other governmental entity. A private road is one that's not. And it is set up and established as a road, though.
Sure.
And then there's everything else. So if you have a 1,000-foot driveway, and there's 2 or 3 people coming off it, drive out that way, as long as they've got a house already, they can use it, but somebody who wants to subdivide and put up a house on that driveway can't do it.
So the example being Rose Lane, for example.
Do you know what Rose Lane is?
I don't actually.
Okay, Rose Lane, if you go down Butterville Road, and say you're coming off of Mountain Rest Road,
Yep.
going towards 299, okay, Rose Lane is off to the right before you get to Pine Road. Do you know where Pine Road is?
Yes.
It's right before there, and it's like a small little road that goes up the
I know
mountain.
exactly what you're talking about, yes.
So in the example of Rose Lane, speculative, land speculation is a gamble. Land was purchased. Land can't be developed on it now.
That's unfortunate.
So in terms of what the decision is tonight for us to make,
I like it when George thinks.
Well, I mean, it's on the agenda for a reason. You and I just, you told me we had to sort of bring this forward, put this back on. There were issues, there were problems. I think there are certain people who want to come to us to ask the board to do an ODA. Because of that last discussion we had said we didn't want to pursue the ODA. We wanted to do the town map, but to do the town map and do it that route, we have to supersede state law, and there were reasons why it was believed that wasn't the right way to go, and that it might be best for us to just sort of say, if somebody wants to come and ask us to look at an ODA, that they should make their application.
Now,
Is that-
but again, no one, just since this first came to issue several years ago, and again, it's only a couple people, none of them have made application, which they are more than open to do for an ODA, because it is currently on our books. And I believe we have used it
Yes,
prior to my tenure.
we have used it, which is why
There's one instance, and that was...
the Dodd property.
Yes, I apologize. That was Boppy's Lane, is a open development area.
Right, and I had the honor of going through that process, and I can tell you it was very, very, very painful, which is why when you...
But which is interesting, though. Through pain, we do learn greatly, because I can probably
There have not been any
talk to 100 people right now that have walked on the rail trail and cannot tell you that there is a single house along that road. And the reason being is the town board, as painful as it was, took great strides in making sure that each one of those homes did not destroy the view shed off of one of the most heavily traveled areas. It's the area that is just south of the Sycamore Creek, which is probably one of the most photographed areas on the rail trail in the town of New Paltz. And very few people even realize that there are not only one home, but there are 3 homes there. So again, the town board is much, I will say, the town board did an excellent job, because all 3 of those homes are not visible to people enjoying that portion of the rail trail. And in fact, you are on the bridge on the Sycamore Creek, and you really have to work to even see one of those 3 homes. The existing farmland, and one of the homes in the existing farmland is several hundred years old, which you can see, which is fine. It was there before the rail bed was there. But the other ones you don't see. So the advantage of the ODA is we, as as the town board, will assist the builder or the person that wants to develop it into something that our community has asked for, which is protecting our view sheds, protecting our steep slopes, protecting our wetlands, protecting our flooded areas. So in that case, as painful as it was, and I apologize it was painful, Susan, and it probably was, it worked out tremendously well in that case. And was it easy? Probably not, but it did work.
It was not easy, but it did work.
Yeah. Did it work for you, George? You were here for it. Yeah, okay.
I felt no pain. So I think what the board needs to do is give direction. My suggestion, Dave's not here to defend himself, so, is that the engineer prepares some guidelines for you. I think there may be some institutional memory. Dave was involved with that.
Yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
and I think he can help you shape a set of guidelines that will be basically provide guidance to an applicant to determine what sort of work they need to do in order to come to you and say, we need an open development area, and give you some information and allow that, it should be more efficient that way.
So in other words, authorize Dave to create a working guideline for the town board. So if an applicant should want to come and make an application for an ODA, they get that, they know what they have to put together, what they have to look at, and what they have to come to the town board with to present to us before we even ever sit down with them, so.
And I think also there's also going to need to be guidelines, or is that covered under state law for the planning board? Because we need to approve it prior to, because we can't do it, if my memory serves me right, we can't do it concurrently. These need to be two separate actions.
Well, the planning board reviews it and makes recommendations on conditions, or establishes conditions that it believes the ODA should have. And then, so it starts with you make the referral, goes to the planning board considers conditions that may be applicable. The guidelines should work for both you and the planning board, and then the planning board sends that back to you saying, we recommend approval with the following conditions.
Now, would we do would we be lead agency for the SECRA? And it would be a type 1 action?
Not necessarily type 1.
Would we be lead agency for SECRA,
Yeah,
and then the planning board would become lead agency for their own SECRA?
No, I'm not sure whether the planning board acts in advisory capacity. If they make a determination that they can deny or approve a project, or approve the ODA, they would be an involved agency. If they're only making a recommendation, guidance, similar to a zoning amendment, to make a board recommendation, they're not involved in that context, in that sense. It makes them an involved agency for purposes of seeker. So you would be the only involved agency that says yea or nay. So you would be the only involved agency.
I'm sure we did the secret for the Dodd.
Yeah, so like, I know you do, because I actually know all the homeowners out there, and so, and I'm just picturing like the one property that's potentially considering selling, one of the properties is considering selling it, just selling the property, and wants the approvals for it to be developed. This sounds like it's going to be very difficult for this board to sit and do SECRA on something with just saying, I want to just be able to sell this property as raw land. Because they're going to end up, it sounds like someone's going to be in front of me twice. First, the person who owns the land, and we will say, okay, as an open development area, you can sell it as raw land, but the person buying it is going to have to then come back to this body and then make application for what they're actually building?
Not necessarily. You can look at the property and say, if you build it over in this section here, you got adequate septic, you're out of the view shed. So if you're within this envelope and you build a standard house that's no bigger than 2,500 square feet, that's fine. You can have the open development area. You can put a condition on like that.
And those conditions would just carry over to the planning board, and that the next owner wouldn't have to then come to us then?
The next owner would have to go to the building inspector, apply for a permit, and show that he or she met the condition.
Okay.
And again, back
How do
from,
you get a deed restriction?
You make a deed restriction and file it of record.
if I remember correctly, when we did the Dodd property, it was painful, but we worked through all the details. We did everything was put into the ODA, whatever, requirements we wanted with all the concerns that we had because of the view shed and whatever. And I don't think once we approved it, I don't think we ever saw it again.
Well, there's actually...
I don't think.
I know...
Go back and pull the file.
I know the planning board had a lot of pieces that they were following from the town board, and I think we should go back and look, because there actually is a fourth lot there that has never been developed. So I think it'd be interesting for us to go back and look to see what restrictions there are on that undeveloped lot still.
So why don't we do this, to sort of wrap this up, is why don't we, you and I, Jeff, could go back review the whole dot file, look and see what we did, learn from what we did, see what we'd like, and then
And meet with
when we
George-
get-
and
when we
meet with
get-
Dave.
And then we could meet with Dave, talk with Dave, because there might be so much we've done already that, and then we could then at that point, as a board, authorize Dave to draft the guidelines and go from there. So how does that sound for everybody?
Okay.
Sound like, okay?
I-
Like a
I'm good,
plan?
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we did that. Why don't we do the new capacity zone real quick? Has anybody been following this? Does everybody understand this?
Legislature passed a resolution against this as well, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, I will try to explain it to the best of my ability. I am not an expert on this, but I'm trying to learn. I did go to there was a forum in Marlborough 2 weeks ago done by the Citizens for Local Power, explaining this whole entire thing, so
There was a
No.
good reason why you weren't there, though,
what do you mean?
because it was on the same night as the Park Point open hearing in New Paltz.
No, when you mean up at the county?
Yeah, was that the same night when they talked about this?
No, the night that they talked about this in Marlborough, there was a thing in Marlborough on the new capacity zone.
Right, that was in Marbleton. That was the
And
same night
I
as...
wasn't, no, I went there that night.
Oh, I thought it was the same night.
Not the same night that it was what?
As Park-
It was like the night before, the
Oh,
night
was it the night
after.
before? Oh,
It was
okay.
like the night before, night after, because I had to do the Park Point thing, and I went to this. And I actually had taken a sick day. I wasn't really feeling good that well that day, and I ended up going out at 7 o'clock at night to go to this in Marbletown. So, did everybody read
I
the
did. Can I make a
problem?
motion to adopt the resolution opposing the new capacity zone, because I read it, it's
Yeah.
very important. You can explain it if you can do it. If you can.
What I could do is I could read really quickly the
It's
problem.
important, it really is.
It
It is really.
Yes,
Thank
I
you
read it.
for bringing it to the
Yeah,
table,
I read it,
Susan.
yeah.
Okay, so I'll read the problem just for the public who's watching, and then we'll take action. We won't get into it. And I will give copies of this to you, Michael, if you want, because it explains it all, so I don't have to, but basically, the problem is the demand for electricity is greatest in the southern eastern portion of the state. New York City, Long Island, and Westchester alone account for over half of New York's demand, while much of the supply is located to the north and west of the state. During times of peak demand, when the weather is very hot or cold, transmission lines running through the Hudson Valley are unable to carry enough supply from upstate sources to meet downstate needs, creating transmission bottlenecks or congestion. This raises the price of electricity as older, less efficient, and more polluting plants downstate are powered up to meet extra demand. And so the federal government and the state government basically have offered separate and redundant approaches to addressing this transmission contrast. The new capacity zone is ordered by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and the alternate current transmission upgrades is proposed by the governor in 2012. So in essence, what the federal government is saying is they want to create these capacity zones because electricity in New York City and lower Westchester is so expensive. They're trying to create these capacity zones and say you have to create the energy within your zone. You have to have 80% of your capacity in your zone. And they're thinking that because the electricity is so expensive, people will come in, build these new generating plants because the energy is so expensive. But what it does is it raises our rates for our electricity extremely high in order to help out New York City and lower Westchester.
Right.
The Hudson Valley gets caught in this crossfire. It increases our rates exponentially, and most people are against this initiative from the Federal Regulatory Commission. Central Hudson's against it. The public PSC, what's the Public Service Commission's against it, and a lot of the towns in the area are coming out against it all over the place. The governor's recommending these new transmission lines that would go underground, and that would go underground in existing right-of-ways, and it would solve the problem. It wouldn't increase the electricity, and it wouldn't be as intrusive as the other plan. So you've got the federal government and the state sort of coming up with different answers. And so these resolutions are basically for the town. The county's already done it, Woodstock's done it, Rosendale's done it. So one is a draft resolution opposing the new capacity zone, and the other one is a draft resolution on proposed transmission upgrades. And so it is really important that we do weigh in on this, because this has a major impact on the cost of electricity for our users in the Hudson Valley.
Who
So-
are we sending these resolutions to?
These resolutions will be going to, the one on the new capacity zone, I'll just read the resolved instead of all the whereases. Therefore be it resolved that the town of New Paltz calls upon the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to postpone indefinitely its order issued August 13, 2013, which conflicts with the state efforts currently underway to address the same problem of transmission constraints, and further calls on New York Governor Cuomo, U.S. Senators Schumer and Gillibrand, and U.S. Representatives Gibson to intervene on our behalf to halt the creation of the NCZ, and that copies of this resolution shall be sent to Governor Cuomo, the FERC, that's the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the PSC, Central Hudson Fortis, federal and state elected representatives of the American Association of state elected representatives of the American Association of Retired Persons, the Public Utility Law Project of New York, and the Business Council of the State of New York. And if you'd like to add anybody else, feel free. So that's who the new capacity zone goes to. So why don't we make a motion on that one, and then we'll do the next one.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion's so carried. The draft resolution on the proposed transmission upgrade will be going to, calls upon the PSC, that therefore be it resolved, the town of New Paltz calls on the PSC to incorporate in its proceedings firm requirements that, one, proposed transmission upgrade shall not include construction of additional taller towers or widen the right-of-way. Two, preference shall be given to lower cost proposals. 3, upgrade shall include a plan for supporting affordable, local, distributed, renewable generation that takes into account both transmission and distribution. 4, the proposals demonstrate how they will advance the New York State Renewable Portfolio Standard and federal, state, and regional plans to increase energy efficiency and renewable energy generation, and that a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Audrey Ziebelman, Chairman of the PSC, with additional copies to Governor Cuomo and the members of the New York State Energy Board. So would somebody like to make a motion on the proposed transmission upgrades?
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Okay, what? Okay, so what we are going to do now is we're going to take advantage of client attorney privilege to discuss Park Point and next Thursday's meeting, where Park Point is joining us at a town board public meeting at 7:30, which will either be here or the board will discuss whether we should consider moving it to BOCES or somewhere else,
Just really make a show of it.
which we can talk about now in public and then make a decision and then go into have. It has been suggested to me by some people in the community that we might want to move it to BOCES to possibly accommodate the potential large crowd that we might get.
What's bigger, the high school or BOCES?
I don't think we'll need the high school again.
The high school is, Dan, you have to help me, that's like 5, 6 or something?
Which room are we talking about? Are we talking
The
about the main auditorium?
Main auditorium.
Yeah, I think it's like 550 or something.
550, and then I believe BOCES is 2 and change.
Oh.
And this
3.
holds how many people?
This is 97.
97.
97.
Okay, so
I
what
mean,
do
if it's not going to be an incurred cost, I think, and we can move it, I think we should.
I think BOCES would probably be able to accommodate,
Just do it soon.
what? We want to do it at City New Paltz?
One of the
I
lecture
love that
hall.
idea.
If they have a lecture hall available, that actually would be good too, but access is a little different. But I actually, if someone does have a price point in mind, though, I would sit here and approve now, though, a few $100s for BOCES should they want reimbursement at the BOCES structure. I do believe this is an important enough issue that we do need to invest some money, and I don't know if our attorney could comment on, would that be something the applicant would pay for if we were meeting with the applicant? Or if this is something you wish not to answer and would prefer to sing a song, you could do that too.
I will say that any conversations that we have had relative to the pilot with our attorney, we have not charged back to the escrow account.
which I believe is fair because it's our conversation. So I actually, I will make a motion then that to spend up to $200 to reimburse BOCES should they want money for us to use their conference room.
Somebody want to second it?
Second?
Okay, so what we'll do is, for discussion purposes, we'll call tomorrow to see if it's available for next, or Rosanna, would you be able to call tomorrow to find out if BOCES is available? Okay, and if it is, then you'll book it, you'll notice it for BOCES? Okay, and the meeting is at 7:30. That's next Thursday, the 27th.
Is there a public notice issue in moving the location?
Well, that's why I'm saying
Yeah.
if she gets it, well, it's enough time, so it's not a problem. So if she gets it, if she finds out tomorrow that we can move it there, then she can, we can put it up on the website. We can send it out to all the press. And I think the New Paltz Times could also probably put it up on their website prior to the paper being published, right? I mean, so they can find out if they could do that. And if BOCES isn't available, would you like me to, do we want to do like the high school cafeteria? Or,
The auditorium could work.
I think the auditorium is a little too big for this particular meeting. The Odeon would be better.
Yeah, but I think it's not that. Yeah, we could do the audio.
The audio might even hold less than, well,
It's a
better
little bit
seating
more than what's right
Yep.
here, but no.
and more organized seating.
Yeah.
It's a little bit better. Yeah.
So I can double check the Odeon.
I still like the SUNY New Paltz idea. That's right.
Well, I think some of the places are clever. Who said that, you or Jeff?
No,
He
that was
did.
Dan.
That was you,
Dan?
Dan?
Dan likes the idea of that.
He's an evil little man.
Hey.
Well, would you like us to check the SUNY New Paltz?
Why not?
If they have an Odeon, if they have one of their lecture centers available,
Yeah, it'd be nice.
they have nice seating and sound systems.
Okay,
and
so
graphics.
what we will do is we will check BOCES first, we will check the high school second for the Odeon, and we'll check SUNY New Paltz third.
Okay. And then we have
Unless you want to
take a
change the
vote.
order, unless you would like to recommend SUNY first.
I really think it should be non-controversial.
Thank you, Jane.
Okay, because it's going to be a lively crowd.
Okay, so then we have to vote on the up to $200, you said?
Yeah, does that sound right? I don't honestly know what
Do you not know
BOCES
what the
charges,
school
but
is?
The school district has to do with paying.
I'm just basing that on my knowledge from what we pay for basketball per hour. So $200 in theory should cover it.
The school actually could be costly based on how long the meeting could go on, to be fair. And
Well, before we go in with George and stuff, and we might as well discuss this now too, in terms of how to handle the meeting in the sense of, a public hearing was held, and the public did speak. The purpose of this meeting is to meet with Wilmerite for the purposes of them to discuss the pilot with us. Even though they said that's the only purpose of the meeting, I suspect if the board wants to discuss anything else, I'm certainly not going to stop the board from bringing up anything else. But in terms of how we do want to handle public input.
Well, I think it's like any other meeting. I believe public input would be at the onset of the meeting, would be public input. And then I believe the meeting that we had planned with the representatives from Wilmerite was for them to discuss with us their feelings and their justification for the application for the IDA. So there may be questions amongst the board
Okay, well,
of that.
before we get to the actual meeting, and I don't have a problem with, there have been times when we've chosen to have public comment at the end of the meeting, not at the beginning of the meeting, as a way to facilitate the meeting, but then still not shut the public down. So I just want to have a conversation with the board about how they think the best way to handle this is. If we do allow public comment first, which might be okay, it's not like Wilmerite doesn't know how this community feels, they've heard it. If we do it, I do think we've got to limit the time and be really clear about that, because the purpose of the meeting is not to go through another public hearing.
Right.
The purpose of the meeting is to meet with the developer to hear what they have to say, and for the board to ask the questions that the board wants to ask. So We could say to the public, we had a public hearing, you had your chance to speak, we'd like to hear from the applicant. However, after the meeting with the applicant, we'd be more than happy to hear what you have to say then, which might be better, because then the public at least is hearing from the applicant, and they'll probably have more to say after the fact than they might have to say before the fact. So,
Right, but also, then the applicant doesn't have to stay. for the
Not if they don't
public
want to.
comment. Right,
Yeah, that was my fear too.
Okay.
Is that I think that a lot of people are going to want to speak in order to speak to the applicant.
right, but
Very well
that is
Paltz out here.
not the purpose
Okay.
of this meeting.
No, you're right.
The purpose of this meeting is for the applicant to speak to us.
I agree with you, and Dan, no, I think a lot of people are coming, they went to the public hearing, they spoke to the applicant was there. They're coming now to hear what the applicant has to say to us. And then my expectation would be that afterwards, the applicant might choose to stay if we do public input afterwards. If they choose not to stay, the public is really talking to the town board to tell the town board what they think about what they just heard. So when the town board has to decide what kind of action we might or might not take, we're listening to the public.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, I have no issue with that.
So does everybody think that that might be the best way to go, that we'll do it where we'll announce to the public that we're going to take public comment after, and that, we're going to show respect to the applicant who came down from Rochester to meet with us, and that afterwards we will stay as long as it takes to let everybody speak? Okay, so that's the way, so why don't we do this as a formal motion that...
Well, I think we already have a motion on the table to,
Just for the expenditure.
No, oh, for the expenditure, so
Yeah.
let's do that first,
we should
okay.
vote on that, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table to pursue BOCES up to $200 with,
Or any location up
Right.
to $200.
okay,
How about that? I will modify it to any location for an expense up to
Okay.
$200.
okay. So we have a motion?
That's the motion.
Do you have a second?
I think we have a second as well. or do you
Okay,
actually
is there any
vote?
discussion? Did you want to say anything, George, or? No. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motions are carried. Okay, so then would somebody like to make a motion that we will suspend public comment at the next meeting until after the meeting with Wilma Wright? I just want to make it formal, so this way,
I'll make a motion that we hold public input after our discussion with the applicant at next week's meeting.
Second.
okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motions are carried. Okay, so, sorry to leave you guys, we don't like to do this, but we are going to go in with George for a little bit just to discuss next week, and then we'll be back.
You got things on the agenda?
Excuse me?
You got more things to discuss?
We have,
Or are you basically done?
we have a historian and maybe some committee reports, and that's pretty much it, maybe some appointments.
Not interesting enough for you?
I mean, I was going to do a quick little update on the police commission, but there's not much to say.
No. No, I didn't hear what Dan said.
Okay,
I was making it.
we'll be back. Aren't these chairs great?
All right.
So,
All right.
what are we up to? You said, Dan, can you make a motion to table the historian?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to table the historian. The Historic Preservation Committee meeting was canceled due to weather and other scheduling issues, so we weren't able to discuss this.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. Dan, you wanted us to readopt the town seal of New Paltz, so would you like to explain?
Yeah, very, very briefly, because it's now late. We had lost the original design of the town seal and found it at Canal Printing Press, the original hand-drawn one, and it was adopted in 1966. Supervisor Pete Savego, a local art student, did it. And because it was just a hand-drawn one over the years, we did a colorized one. The resolution was poor, a whole bunch of things. We had various versions of it. So I put it online and asked if any graphic design artist would be willing to do it, and our own Matthew Maley did it for free. He colorized the original.
Oh, was Matthew Maley who did it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
Thank you,
realize that.
Matthew Bailey.
It was. So I was
No,
also
not
gonna
Dr.
ask-
Maley.
No, Matthew Maley did.
Oh, I thought you
he
said
did-
doctor. No, not
Matthew
Frank
Maley did, did artwork for a project of mine.
Yeah, that's great. And I was actually hoping too that, assuming we do approve this, that we could send him just a letter of thank you, which I can draft up.
Absolutely.
On behalf of the town board as well. Because he did do it for free, he could have easily asked for
That is
it.
very-
And Carol already,
Nice.
and Carol already did.
It's on the website already.
Yes. Carol already put it on the website because she said the one we had before was not a good quality.
So obviously this isn't the most pressing issue, but I do think it's important.
Okay, so would you like to make a motion to readopt the new colorized town seal?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Matt Maley. And I'm sorry, but I did forget to say at the beginning of the meeting, Chris, hi. I did forget to say at the beginning of the meeting that at the joint town-village meeting, the town board and the village board made a motion for us to extend our deepest gratitude to you guys for all of the work that you guys have been doing based on this winter storm and how bad it's really been and what an incredible job you guys have been doing with the roads and making sure that everybody in New Paltz is safe. And I forgot to convey that to you at the beginning when we were doing announcements. So thank you
to the crew.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you to the crew. Let them know that the citizens of New Paltz are indebted to our town highway department for the amazing job they've done under very, very strenuous conditions. And what I will also say also is at the Association of Towns meeting that I was at for these past few days, I was in a meeting with one of the classes on the tax freeze and the circuit breaker with the governor's budget officer, Bob Megna. And hopefully, it seems that there's a good possibility. The governor has like about another 20 days to make amendments to his budget, and there is a good chance that they're going to be looking to see how they could be coming up with some money to give back to all of the local communities to cover their cost for this extraordinary winter relative to the overtime costs to clear the streets. So they are looking to see if we can probably get some money back. So hopefully that's what's going to happen. But they did say at the Association of Towns, and this was the budget officer, that they are looking at trying to amend the budget to compensate local communities for the burden that we've taken on this snowstorm, this winter.
And I'd also like to
Snowstorm.
And I'd like to remind everyone that there is not any parking on town streets starting on, what's the dates? No, it's November to
April?
to
Yeah.
April, I
We
believe,
have got it in the village still.
to April. Yep. Yep, and
No
I
night
just would
parking.
like to, and also just, I was made aware, a resident got hold of me, and we just want to have, your car has been towed. I'm sorry, but I do know that drivers and police officers have made noise in front of residences to alert them that their car may be being moved, so,
We actually made up flyers that we put on the windshields.
yes, so, and I was going to say,
We had no one towed this past week.
yep, no one was towed. I have a resident even contacted me to say that a flyer was left on their vehicle, and a tow truck driver made very loud noises with his truck horn to alert him he was out front, and he came out and was able to move his vehicle. So, but everyone, please do it. We have more snow than normal, and Chris and his crews are trying to widen the roads. So if we get more snow, it can go somewhere.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so just really quickly on department reports, committee reports, I just want to report real quick that we were supposed to have our first police commission meeting, and we got snowed out. We rescheduled. We were supposed to have a second police commission meeting. We got snowed out. And so, but I have met with the chief. He's been updating me on what's going on. When we had a long conversation on a bunch of different issues, when we got done talking, I said to him, "Do you know, Chief," I said, "everything you just talked to me had budget implications." Every single issue had budget implications, interestingly enough. So he has been updating me, and we've been meeting. And tomorrow I will be meeting, and if Jeff can make the meeting, I will be meeting with the PBA tomorrow because I wanted to have a management labor conversation. So I will be talking with the PBA personally, hopefully with Jeff, Councilman Logan, and the Chief and I have been keeping in touch despite the fact that we haven't had our formal police commission meeting because the weather and Mother Nature has stood in our way. I don't know if anybody else has anything just quickly on any of the
I have a
department.
very brief one.
Sure.
That I was going to share the youth center. On Thursday, when we had that massive snowstorm, the youth center was actually open, and not only were they open, but John House, who also serves on our ENCB, literally cross-country skied to the youth center from Pine Plains Road, which I thought he was kidding at first, and I found out, I had to confirm, no, he really did, to open the youth center for the students or children of our community, and people showed up. I just thought it was amazing that in 2 feet of snow, we opened up, and he was there. Thought it was worth nothing.
Thank you, that's really weird. So does anybody have anything else that they want to really quickly? Okay, so I'd like to, before we do the minutes and go into the prepays, and sorry that it came back for some boring stuff. So I'd like to have...
You never know.
You never know. I'd like to have a motion to, for our bookkeeper, who's doing a sensational job, Arlene is doing an absolutely incredible job, working to really straighten out our budget situation, making sure we do everything right, making sure we comply with controller guidelines. We had a meeting with all the department heads last week after we looked at the DEC furniture, and we had a meeting with the department heads, and we did it at the police station because it was right next to the DEC, and Arlene was very, very, very clear with all of the department heads how she wants to see the vouchers, when she wants to get the stuff, in terms of timeline, what she needs to have attached to the vouchers, and what a cumbersome process it really is, and how we need to streamline it, and how she will not let anything go through unless it's double, triple checked with the right, documentation. And so she's been working really, really hard, just doing the work that needs to be done and straightening out the work that has to be done. So we did have a part-time bookkeeper in the budget, and Arlene has asked to make that person full-time. Our former bookkeeper had 2 part-time people working for her, so Arlene doesn't have that. We have 1 great part-time person, so we're looking to make that full-time. So do I have a motion to increase Rachel 12 hours a week, making her now full-time, 12 hours a week and $12 an hour?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. We also had in the budget for this year a part-time person up in the supervisor's office for 25 hours, which we had, it was in the past, and so we have Ann Berkeley at $12 an hour for 25 hours. Do you have a motion?
Is that what we agreed to?
Yeah, $12 an hour is in the budget. Yeah.
All right.
And that was $12 an hour at those hours, right?
$12 an hour, 25
So
hours.
moved.
Yep.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. The minutes, January 15th was the reorg meeting. So could I have a motion to accept January 15th?
So moved.
Second?
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion so carried. The January 23rd meeting, Jean, you weren't there,
Nope.
No.
so it was myself, Dan, Kevin, and Jeff. So
Yep.
Jeff, you want to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the January 23rd minutes?
Dan, would you like to second it?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. And Jean, you want to abstain?
I abstain, Rosanna.
Okay, so now we have what the prepays and warrant.
The one prepay, and I couldn't find it in there. Can I ask a question, Gene?
Sure.
And actually, Chris might answer it. Did you buy the tags for the trucks? Never mind, that answer. I was wondering why it was such a
Just
large...
GPS?
No, the Easy Pass.
It's in here.
That's what I was wondering. I couldn't figure out where anyone drove $650 worth of tolls. I'm like, that's one heck of a lot of trips to Buffalo.
They set the cost because of the amount.
Nope, I just couldn't find the voucher, so good. No, so.
It's here.
We want, no, so,
Yeah.
no, I couldn't figure it out.
It's not actual cost.
No, okay, good. Nope, that is awesome. So your guys now can just hop on the road and cross bridges. Perfect, thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Okay, so do you want to make some amendments to the warrant?
I do.
Okay.
So, voucher 1302892.
What page number are you on?
I am not on a page. I'm looking at a live voucher.
What's the,
It's Shimon.
Chemung?
So it would be under highway?
Well, they're alphabetical.
Oh,
Shimon.
I'm with you.
It's on a 2013 voucher. The invoice is January 28, 2014. I would like it for 2014.
let me just double.
Sure.
That's the 4925? 4,000.
$4,925.
Yep, got it.
Well, it was ordered 12/27/13. Chris, this is for street signs, for traffic control, for, you signed it to 2/12/14. February 12th, 14,
And the invoice date is
And-
January.
and the invoice date is January 28th, 2014. But,
Okay,
It's-
leave it.
well, no, I'm asking Chris, but it's being billed, right now it's looking to be billed back to 2013.
That's when they were ordered.
What?
That's when they were ordered. They weren't delivered until after that or invoice. We didn't get the invoice for them until 14. That's the one I'm thinking of.
But yeah, they were ordered 12/27/13.
Yes. They were ordered 12/27.
What budget do you want that to come, do you want that to come out of the 13 budget then, Gene?
Yeah, and I wanted it to come out of 2014 because the invoice is dated 1/27. It doesn't,
Oh, it's. Can I see the invoice? I'm losing my mind here. Because it says
Yeah.
221 on the
See, it
thing.
was ordered here,
Yeah,
but
I
on
got it,
the
yeah.
invoice, it does say that this invoice date,
12814.
but if it was ordered, and the invoice would come when they got delivered, right, Gene?
no, the invoice date is generally the order date.
In other words, yeah, they should have invoiced on order, but they, I don't know. Are these like custom signs or something, Chris?
These are all of our street signs.
Okay, no, I have no exception. I make a motion to approve the warrant.
No, Gene, if we,
No, it's okay.
would somebody like to second?
I'll second it.
Would anybody like to discuss? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Is there anything else? Okay, do I have a motion to close the meeting?
Oh,
I
actually,
make a motion to adjourn.
Wait, Jeff.
Can I ask one quick, I see we got these in our box, and I'd ask for the 2013, 2014. Are we going to discuss some of these next year, or Gene, should I call you directly?
For
on
what?
The expenditures and some accounts are over, under?
Well, that they still have to, we haven't done the,
Can I, journal entry, what, is there a deadline on journal entries, what corrections?
No, this is the last warrant that we have bills for 2013, so we haven't done any entries yet because we knew we were going to have more expenses.
So when do we go back and
she
do,
starts now and probably.
to move?
So now, everything is done for 2013. Anything else that comes in, even if it was ordered,
It's too
even if it was purchased, even if they find it under a table, in a drawer,
14.
in their car, it will be charged to 2014.
And that is one, and then two is some of the accounts. When's our deadline for moving funds?
Probably,
Well, we're going to do budget modifications, we're not actually going to move money.
Is there a deadline for that, though?
Well, prior to filing
The annual report.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we can probably get that done,
we'll probably, hope if she can't have it by next meeting, then we'll have it probably for
Probably.
the March meeting.
probably we get first meeting in March?
Yeah.
Yeah, March, we're
Yeah.
not going to have it by next week.
No, no, I wouldn't expect it. Looking at this, I wouldn't expect it. Is that something we might want to plan on a special meeting in March so we can get our annual report in on time? Would that be, the board want to entertain that?
I would definitely entertain it if we could have it in time.
I know it's going to take
but
your
it's,
time, Gene, and it's going to take Arlene's time, so that's why I want to ask
To
them
do
that.
what? To write up budget modifications?
Anyway, we can have a special meeting if we need to, and I would definitely do
Yeah.
it. So I just want to
Let's
point
think
out,
about
I just
that.
want to point out really quickly that hopefully, though, these budget modifications that we have to do, what Arlene is going to be instituting is a policy, which is what should be done. So what happens is here, we're going to be moving things from whatever. Next year, we will not find ourselves hopefully having to do that because she's letting every department head know, which she's already told them, that if you exceed your line and you want to take from a different line, the board has to approve it before you could even spend that money. So we will be making approvals of moving money around on a case-by-case basis. So by the end of the year, we will never be making budget modifications because we will be doing it throughout the year.
Right.
And so that's the way
You
you're
mean-
supposed to do it.
You mean actually doing like the comptroller?
Yes, we're gonna be
tells you,
doing
like-
it exactly the way
Like you're actually
yeah.
doing it the way the
Yes.
state law is set up, you mean?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
That's right.
I remember the
That's right.
Edmund software, because I had previewed it for another municipality. We may be able to implement in the Edmund software that if you're out of money, because your budget is in the system, that you won't be able to get a PO. You won't be
I
able
think,
to
I think
get
she,
a
I think she's already, I think she's already set it up that
Okay.
way. That's already in
That would
place.
be the absolute best thing, because then, we've already taken the control away, so then a department head just couldn't.
Our clerk is smiling too, so I think she likes that too.
No, no, no. It's not a matter of liking it. It's already in place
Yeah, great.
now. The Edmund system is set up now where if you cannot get a voucher if you have no money left in that line, and it's already in place, it's already done. She's been overriding it in order to be able to process vouchers for people. And then part of it's also because I'm approving it. If they come in and say they need this money or whatever, and it's blah, blah, blah. But now what's going to happen is nothing's going to be approved going forward when they get to the point, by the time they get to the point where they overspend certain lines, Arlene will have so much in place and whatever she'll be able to start to, but that it is in place already. You cannot, and now, sure, please, use the microphone.
Arlene also mentioned that the department heads can actually go into Edmunds and look at their budget lines to see what they have left, what they've spent, and so they should be doing that on a regular basis to make sure that they are not going over. And if they think they're going to go over, then they have the opportunity to get the board's approval to get POs for things.
Right. So this is all part of the process of what Arlene's trying to put in place to make sure everything is being done within controller's guidelines.
Good.
So, okay?
Gene, finish your motion. I apologize, I interrupted.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Thanks.
No, come on.
Susan, quick thing for you.
Good night, princess.
On the radio yesterday, I heard, Mike Darcy works at Rupco.
be a queen.
No.
He's talking about doing this whole thing with municipalities going in and helping residents do their free NYSERDA home energy audits. And
Oh, that's right. Rob Public's doing that. I was once at a presentation where